Ever met a mum who's breastfeeding, pumping and bottle feeding all in one endless loop? It's called triple feeding. It sounds helpful until you realise she's spending more time feeding than sleeping and still wondering if she's doing it right. In this episode, Joe and I talk about how triple feeding starts, why it's spreading like wildfire through maternity care, and when it actually helps versus when it quietly breaks everyone down. We'll share what to do instead, how to get off the treadmill safely, and the 5-day rule that every new mum and parents, as well as professionals, need to know. This is the Latch Revolution. We've got to talk about triple feeding today.
That's right. Another complicated things.
We did come on and Joe went to take her jumper off and I had you know when you have one of those flash moments, I was like, oh my God, she's going to breastfeed her dog. And I genuinely thought that for like a split second. Like, she's getting her boobs out.
Lifting my shirt up, right?
It was the way you did it, like one-sided. And I was like, oh, she's getting her boob out. All right.
Yeah, we're not that kind of podcast, Katie.
No, Joe's sons are beyond 10 now. Not that we have a problem with any length of breastfeeding. However, Joe hasn't breastfed for a long time. So it was slightly unusual. And that's why clearly my head went, oh, you must be feeding your dog who's sitting on your lap.
Because really that's the only option when someone takes their jumper off.
So, you know, if you're ever in my presence, you take your jumper off, be aware of what is going on in my head. That's it.
Well, Katie, I'm very excited about our topic today. It's been one that we've wanted to both talk about, I think, for a long time. And we have had personal rants with each other about this on repeat for a couple of years, I would say, right?
Ooh, yeah.
What is it, Katie? What are we talking about?
We're talking about triple feeding. So we should probably start with what is it? Because actually I realised that it slips off the tongue so easily. And when we're in this world of lactation, we assume everybody knows what we're talking about. And actually, there's a hell of a lot of student midwives and midwives and people working in this world of birth and lactation support. And also the mums themselves who are like, what on earth are you talking about?
Right.
Who would, in their right mind, triple feed anything or anyone? Who would do triple the work?
Exactly.
So we need to establish what it is and why we might be using it, and then we can probably go into our rants.
Yeah. Okay. Why we and why other people, why it is used. Let's go with that.
Yeah. Do you want to start?
I can start, sure. So triple feeding is the concept that you need to have 3 things in place to be able to have a baby that is fed. And those 3 things are breastfeeding plus pumping plus giving some kind of supplement, usually with a bottle. And what I see typically is that it is like breastfeeding so if someone comes to me, say 4 weeks postpartum, they have started triple feeding in the hospital, they have been supported by their midwife to do it out of the hospital as well. They come to me, they're 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever it may be, where they have been doing a really structured plan of, for example, the typical would be 20 minutes on the left, 20 minutes on the right, 20 minutes double pumping. Ideally, they've got themselves a double pump. I sometimes have people that are doing 20 minutes single and then 20 minutes single. And then they have to bottle feed, and they have then been told that the bottle needs to take as long as a breastfeed to make sure that the baby doesn't get a bottle preference. And their breastfeed took 40 minutes. So if their bottle is taking only half an hour or 20 minutes, they feel like they're sabotaging their breastfeeding. So let's go with they're doing their ideal, which would be 20 plus 20 plus 20 pumping plus 40 breastfeeding. And how frequently are babies wanting to feed at newborn stage? Like, very frequently. So,
and I think we should also factor in there. So if we're sitting there at 1 hour, 40 minutes, 1 hour, 30 minutes, also settling nappy change within that as well. and then you go back to sleep, and then the triple feeding plan tends to be a 3-hourly regime.
Exactly.
Because we're trying to get in 8 stimulations to the breast
8
in
minimum.
24 hours.
Exactly.
8 minimum.
8 to 12, we get told. Exactly.
So this is like an hour's rest. And I think
Often
there's a
not.
case for quadruple feeding.
Yes, agreed.
Which is when, as you will know, not only are we feeding the baby the milk that the mum has pumped, but then she doesn't quite have enough milk yet. So she's actually having to make formula on top and then give that as well.
Mm-hmm.
She might be mixing the formula with the breast milk, which I hope she's not, because if the baby doesn't drink it all, then we're wasting the milk that she spent a lot of time pumping out. However, I can understand why we would mix it to try and curtail some of that time.
Exactly.
But that is, in my mind, quadruple feeding. Because then you've also got to be sterilizing and cleaning those
Exactly. It's the washing
parts in a different way than you do with express breast milk.
Right.
And we don't even count the cleaning part. So maybe it's, what is 5?
Quintuple.
Quintuple feeding. Quattro feeding. I feel like some 70s car dealer. Need your quattro. Basically, a bloody awful regime that I'm definitely hearing more and more about from lactation specialists, lactation passionate people in the field, who are saying to me, more and more women are being discharged from hospital with a triple feeding plan. Why is this happening, Katie? And I think it's really important that we talk about why we might use them in the very early stages.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that mostly is going to go hand in hand with the birth. So seeing a massive rise in how many women are being induced. We're seeing a rise because of induction. We're seeing a rise in the use of medications, epidurals, pethidine, salt, such things. I nearly went to German then. And we are seeing a rise in cesarean sections and intervention in birth. And we know that when we have intervention in birth, we tend to have babies who are more sleepy at the beginning. And so we have less stimulation on the breast. And then what happens is, if we've kind of, in the nicest possible way as midwives or nurses, depending on where we're working, have gone to that mum, oh, don't worry, have a good sleep. You know, that baby's going to wake up soon and keep you awake all night. Mm-hmm. And they've spent maybe 48 hours with that baby feeding maybe 3 times in 24 hours, maybe 4. They're trying at the breast, but it's a real sleepy baby, and no one's come in with a pump. No one's come in with hand expression. No one's come in with the talk of very easy, very gentle, let's stimulate the breast, because the baby should be doing this.
They feel like they have the best baby ever that's just sleeping all the time. This is so easy. I'm on cloud 9 from all that oxytocin.
It's lush. Mm-hmm. And also they recharge. They've probably had a horrendously long, difficult, stressful birth experience. Mm-hmm. And we do actually need that recuperation. So it's a very fine line to tread as a health professional as well, to actually kind of go in all guns blazing with, we need to activate the milk cells and switch them on. However, there is a time limit of when we can actually activate and switch on milk cells. And then what tends to be happening in most hospitals is we're weighing babies before they go home, so about 48 hours. And the reason for that is safety, basically, in this day and age where we don't have continuity of midwife, we don't have enough home visits. We want to make sure and check which babies are safe, basically, to go home, to put it bluntly. Mm-hmm. So we're weighing babies, and then what's happening to those babies? They're probably losing a bit more weight than we want. They're on that 10% border or more. And then we start with all guns blazing. And then we're like, oh, you don't have enough milk, your baby's lost weight. And we put panic mode in, and then we go, right, so we need to like pretend you're having twins on your breast, and we need to stimulate. But also, your baby needs much more milk. So we've got to top it up with extra milk. Mm-hmm. And that tends to be how it starts, is a weight loss issue. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then we send this exhausted dyad, this pair, home. And so it continues.
Yeah.
So that's where we're starting with probably fear, angst, stress, exhaustion. Yeah. And then we're probably, let's face it, doing quadruple feeding.
Yep.
Because any EBM, express breast milk, that this mum is able to get, she is giving to that baby. And probably in that first 24, 48 hours of doing this regime, she's probably actually not getting enough, because let's face it, if that baby's lost 10%, most hospitals are probably not going with the ABM guidelines of the small volumes of supplementation. They are going in with 30 mils minimum.
Minimum,
So if she's
exactly.
getting
More
5
like
mils
50 to 60, you know? Like,
here
ooh,
in Switzerland, yeah, definitely,
yeah,
and in other countries,
yeah,
like
yeah.
massive volumes. And so it's unobtainable. And so she's needing to use the formula as well.
And I mean, what I see very much, like, yes, I see the people that have been triple feeding, like from, say, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5. But I also, because where we are in Switzerland, we've got the midwives, we do have the continuity of care where you have the midwife that is coming very frequently after they go home. And what I see very often is that things were going okay at the hospital and they got sent home and things were still okay. But then you have a scenario where now it's like, yeah, but my nipples are really sore and um, I have started to use nipple shields potentially. And now, for whatever reason, my baby is taking a really long time to feed, and they don't understand why those two things would be connected. And now we start to see potentially just like a little plateau in the weight gain. Or, you know what, not even that. Maybe we've got people that are being told that their babies should be gaining 210 grams a week, and their baby maybe only put on 20 grams in that one day. So the midwife potentially was just, pretty neutral about it and was like, that's okay. It's kind of borderline. So we'll just kind of see how that goes. But of course, that's a bit anxiety inducing if they're not being given this positive affirmations all the time, that this is why, this is all okay. If it's no weight gain at all for one day, but we have got an upward trend, also no issue. When did they do their poo last, etc.? When did they feed before the last weight gain? So very often I have a scenario where there potentially wasn't a major crisis point, but it was almost like a little intervention that got put in that was like, look, it's not going to do any harm. Let's just kind of kick things in a little bit more and get you a bit over the hump so that you just end up feeling a little bit more confident. And there was not really any major need to do it in the first place. And that's what I am often seeing. And then once you
Yep.
have started to get into that cycle, now it's very hard to just stop it, to get out of it. So that's where I see people that have been doing it for weeks and weeks and weeks and can't really articulate the major thing that went wrong that started them off on this process. So funny how it's that again we have quite different experiences with how it could potentially start, right? But we are still seeing these women that are stuck and can't get out of it.
Yeah,
And it's
totally.
absolutely next level exhausting and so unsustainable.
So unsustainable. So we've got these two kind of starting points. We've got the hospital, which comes in all guns blazing. We've got the I'm not really sure. Let's just be a bit more mindful about the weight. We could probably expect a bit more. Maybe just try adding in a bit of extra expressing, and then we give baby a bit more.
this whole concept of like, let's just see, you can breastfeed, but then we'll offer a bottle and see if they want it, right? This is what I hear all the time. And it's like, yeah, well, then now they did want it. So that's my evidence of the fact that they weren't getting enough.
And I mean, which baby is going to refuse like some nice milk just easily flowing into their mouth? Not
Well,
many.
exactly. Like, which baby doesn't want to suck on something that has gone into their mouth? Not many.
Not many.
Right.
So we've got these emerging things that are getting more and more. And the other thing is that I think is important is the rise of social media talking about it. So from an influencer, I'm putting influencer in quotes because it might be general mums who have a big following.
Yeah.
That is an influencer.
Yeah.
There is this thing about building a stash, and I think sometimes those two can overlap. There is definitely more discussion about triple feeding online. And then there is this panic of, oh, I'm not sure if my baby's gaining enough, and the general anxieties that a lot of new mums have. So I'll just add this in. And then women are doing this themselves.
Yeah.
And getting themselves onto this treadmill. I suppose what I want to segment, that's the word, isn't it? Segment is to the midwives and the health professionals who are saying to me, why are we seeing this so much? Well, my reflective answer is, how much worse are we doing? How much more intervention is happening? Because the two go hand in hand. So with that thing, with the general, let's just introduce this and carry this on for weeks on end. And then the social side of it, oh my goodness me, it's at epic proportions. I feel like it would be so often that you would get a mum in who has been on this regime for so many weeks. And then the question is, they might have been seeing someone else. And what I get now as well is, because obviously I teach every month in my course. So I've got a mixture of doulas, I've got a mixture of breastfeeding peer supporters, got a mixture of midwives, lactation consultants. And the question that comes in so often is, how do I start to get them off of this triple feeding plan?
Right.
Like, it's almost like we've got all this information suddenly out there of, okay, well, it's really important to kickstart a milk supply.
Yeah.
But we've then twisted this information and we've made it like, oh, well, we could just add this in because I'm not really sure about this baby's weight and I'm probably not going to see you for a few days. And I don't really want to feel on the fence about, am I going to worry if this baby's put on enough weight? I'm not really going to take a massive bird's eye view. I'm coming in very micro view, and I'll just start her on it. And then maybe you don't go back to see that woman, or maybe she sees a different clinician and she's kind of forgotten about. And 3 weeks down the track, she's about to have a nervous breakdown. And you might pick up the pieces and go, oh my God, how do I know where to even start? What do I take out first? Do I take out the pumping first? Do I take out the top-ups first? How many of them do I take out? When do I take them out? What are the stages to make me know that this is safe for that baby? And also, what are the things to say, this is no longer safe for that mum?
Right. 100%. Because, I mean, it's very, very rare. I would say maybe like 1 in 50 people that I see where I will talk to them about potentially introducing a temporary triple feeding option. Maybe even less than 1 in 50, but it will be a scenario. I will always say it to them firstly that this is as hard as it gets. And this is like a full marathon. And in order to be able to do this, you need to have X, Y, and Z in place in the background. Like, I do not expect you to do any laundry, any cleaning, any like food prep, nothing. Like, if there is ever a time to buy cut up carrot sticks and package everything, now is it, right? So go into it with that mindset and know that this is going to last, in my world, I say 5 days maximum, and that's it. And if this is the solution that is going to kick everything in, you will know by day 5. And if at day 5 you are still in the same situation and things haven't changed, then this is not your solution. We take a different path, right? So this is not something that I expect you.
Just hallelujahing here.
This is not something that I expect you to do for 10 weeks on end. And this is not what your breastfeeding now looks like. This is not how you feed a baby. This is not sustainable. It is not a feasible solution for anyone to be able to go to the toilet ever, have a shower, eat some soup, like nothing, right?
Have clear mental function. I mean, that's not really possible in the postpartum anyway, but to a certain extent, a level of clarity or...
Right. I'm like, just, it is really, I think also, I went through it with my first boy and I did it for 11 weeks. and it totally broke me. It totally broke me. And there is no way that I am going to let that happen to anybody that walks through the door with me, ever. And I know from the way that all of this works that 5 days max. And we have so many other options. So I do think that it is something useful that we can potentially do to kick things off. But then they should have been kicked off by that amount of time, right?
Absolutely. It's a bit like if we're going to give antibiotics, we should be seeing a result within 24, 48 hours. If we're not, we need to go and either test for a different strain of bacteria, or we use a different antibiotic, or they do something else. This is a bit like a medical intervention that is short, sharp, should be very effective because it's bloody hard work.
Yeah.
And within 3 days, we're starting to see a difference. Within 5 days, we're seeing a big difference.
Exactly.
And from that point on, they might still be on this triple feeding regime. But what we're doing is we might be slowly taking them out, or we've suddenly gone, we're going to halve what you're doing. And then within another 3 to 5 days, we might have fully got rid of that regime. However, when we've gone into it, like I know you will talk about, is I'm going to reassess in 3 days, 5 days, whenever you're able to see them, whether that's a phone call, in person. And I will be changing the plan as this is what I'm expecting to see. X, Y, Z. You'll probably start noticing your breasts feel fuller. The aim of this is that you are going to be making more milk. Your baby's going to be drinking more milk. And eventually, in a few days, we're going to just have you completely breastfeeding.
Right.
That's the point. And if we're then going in and sitting on that for weeks on end, that is a recipe for disaster. Yes. So we have to be having these plans where we then talk to the parents. And I would say that as a plural, because whoever's around them needs to hear this as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's very difficult for just that woman to take that information on board, is that this is temporary. This is not pleasant. This is about an intervention coming in to quickly do something, and then we're going to gradually remove it.
Yep. Yeah. And, you know, like this is where you and I have had this dream together that at some point in our lives, we will create some kind of a clinic where women can just come in and get in a bed and we'll feed you and look after you and give you everything that you need. Like triple feeders, come on in. You know, we will take you for
quadruples and the quattros.
And the quintuplets.
Yeah, we'll clean your bottles.
Exactly. I'm like, if there's ever a time, you know, this is where everybody needs to get behind these women and give them everything so that they have to do nothing else, right? So, but then absolutely, it's not sustainable for everybody else as well, right? So, yeah.
So let's talk about if we've then used this as an intervention and we have... I think I'm going to ask you the question that I get asked, which is without any nuance. It's just the general big, large question. And then I'm like, okay, let's just break this down and let's take 2 examples. When do we stop this? How do we stop the triple feeding?
Well, thanks for the easy question. So,
would you like to ask that to me?
No.
I should have recorded myself literally last week. I had this question. I was like, why did I not record this?
Yeah, but I mean, that this is it, right? Is that like I'm in there with a client and she says to me, you know, like, okay, so I think it's going well, but I don't really know. So like, what do I do now? Right? Like, how do I get off it? How do I know it's going well? So what I would do, let's say we get to day 5 and this woman is still doing the triple feeding. What she should be noticing is that the amount that she's getting out with the pump is a lot more.
And when you say day 5, you mean day 5 of the triple feeding regime?
Of the triple feeding, exactly.
Just clarifying.
Thank you. So if she was someone that was doing this quadruple feeding and maybe she had been getting, say, 20 mils of breast milk into the baby and 40 of formula, then we start to see that gradually change. So now we have got, okay, more like 20 mils of formula, 40 mils of breast milk, and then potentially, this is all presuming that she's got a good pump, the correct size, all of that kind of business is done, right?
That's another podcast.
We'll talk about that another time. Because, oh my God, people that are triple feeding and they're not using the right pumping situation. But I have to take a breath. Jeez, okay. Come to our future fantasy clinic. We will help you. Okay, so they have a scenario where the amount of formula they're needing is significantly less. The amount of breast milk that they are able to express is significantly more. And that when they have been using, this is presuming that they're using a bottle, I'm just going with that for the moment. If they've been using a bottle and they've been doing the paced bottle feeding with their baby so that they can truly see how much milk that baby actually wants, and it's not just a reflexive need for the baby to suck on things, then they start to see that the amount that their baby actually wants is reducing over time. And what my dream situation is that, yes, we can create a plan for them to be able to gradually get off this, but also that their baby is having points at their breast where they're potentially doing switch feeding now, maybe. And
please switch feeding. Please.
And they just are not needing, potentially they're still offering a bottle afterwards, doing the pace feeding. The baby is just not interested.
Yeah, they're knackered.
And
they're
just kind of done. And so then maybe you'll see, okay, I tend to say to people, like, more likely that's going to happen in a morning feed. You might start to see that in the morning occasionally. And then, you know, as day goes on and we're getting now like after lunch and then into the evening, then your supply starts to slowly lower and your baby starts to get a little bit more fussy. So potentially we kind of need to go back into that a little bit. And you might find that the baby does still need a little bit extra in the evenings. And this is also okay, as long as you are continuing to follow that trend and follow the baby's cues in that way. So my dream is that they are able to see what their baby actually needs in that situation and to be able to read that. So that's where we have to be able to teach them paced bottle feeding so that that makes sense to them and so that they can judge that. And we have to teach them how to be effectively pumping as well. It's tricky because like that is, I feel like it's kind of like a cheat's way of getting out of your question.
Not at all. I think it's just, I think we need to look at the different scenarios in terms of, firstly, I think that's absolutely right. And I think that's the beautiful kind of easy way without strict rules is what, you know, and you're really reflecting back with that mother. What are you noticing? Mm-hmm. What are you seeing? And also, like, what are you feeling in your breasts? How do they feel? Do they feel fuller? Do they feel emptier afterwards? And this is also, we're talking about this out of the context of also saying, as lactation consultants, we would have done an assessment on that baby and how well that baby transfers the milk. Like, is there any oral issues going on? So this is totally within the confines of a strict podcast and just talking about triple, quadruple, quadruples feeding,
Quintuple.
which is actually quite difficult because there are so many nuances. So if I come at it,
no nuance, it's difficult to talk about anything without nuance. But
no, totally. And I think if that's for the mum that you've seen who has had the kind of shitty comment of, oh, just give it a go, add it in, do a bit more pumping, or been kind of influenced to do it, like, well, maybe my baby isn't getting enough milk because they're feeding 10 times in 24 hours, which is normal. And so they're trying to boost their supply and they've got themselves in a bit of a routine. However, if they're the baby who has lost 11% and then they've come home, or they're the late preterm baby or the early term, now these are the tricky ones. These are the real tricky ones. You've got that baby 36 plus 4, 37 plus 4 on the fence,
The great
Those
pretenders.
babies the great pretenders, they could take a lot longer to come to the point where you actually, or the mum recognizes, oh, my baby's sucking really well. And that can be tricky for the clinician to be able to say, okay, is that baby transferring the milk well? I don't have the time to watch every feed. This mum doesn't necessarily have the skill yet. A week postpartum, 2 weeks postpartum. This is where this gets tricky. And I think then I bring in probably, and you do as well if you've got those babies, you're going to look at the weight. You're going to be looking at the output. And I might take a more of a staggered feeding plan approach.
Yeah.
When I was in a drop-in center, and it was wonderful and easy, and I could bring people back the next day if I wanted. We were open 5 days a week. In this scenario, I would push it out slowly by slowly. And so I would probably push them out for 2 days, and I would just take out, if we were really unsure on the clinical picture, but we had a baby who's now gaining weight, drinking well, her milk supply is coming up. That's probably the biggest marker, is her milk supply is coming up. She's noticing the feeling in her own breasts.
Mm-hmm.
But we have this kind of sleepy baby, it's all these nuancy parts. Then I'm probably going to take out 2 pumps and 2 top-ups throughout the day at different times.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to check. And then I might take out another 2 in 2 more days. And I might ease off that way. Mm-hmm. However, this is just one approach depending on how challenging or tricky that mother-baby dyad is. Right. In terms of, we've got a baby who's 2.5 kilos, 2.4 kilos. They've lost a lot of weight. They're quite sleepy. I've got to bring her milk supply up. Or sorry, she's bringing her own milk supply up. I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing any of the work at all, unless you come to our fantasy clinic. In those situations when I feel like maybe there's some uncertainty because of time that the midwife lactation consultant has, maybe doesn't work in an opportunity where she gets to have 90 minutes with a client. Because I mean, I worked in hospital clinics. We have 45 minutes. I've been a postnatal midwife at people's homes. I've got 20 minutes. Plus, I've got to do a heel prick test. I've got to weigh them. Then she goes, oh, my lochia, my bleeding smells quite funny. And I go, oh, I better take a swab of that and have a look at that. And I've got 20 minutes. I haven't even seen a breastfeed. So in those scenarios, which is really predominantly what we're seeing in places like the UK, in Australia, they are pushed for time. Yeah. Where do you draw the boundaries of safety? And I suppose that is very at the forefront of my mind, because I've worked very much in that pressured environment of going, holy moly, I need to make sure this is safe. I actually haven't got time to witness an entire feed. I'm not being a lactation consultant in a lactation consultant appointment here with 90 minutes. Yeah. I'm being a midwife, breastfeeding peer supporter. I've got an open clinic. I've got 14 mums, and we're open for 3 hours. Yeah. I need to write her a plan to go home with. Yeah. That's when I take this staggered, slower approach than what you were describing. And that's why I have that kind of, I'm going to take it slowly. I'm going to just make sure things don't fall off the peg. And she ends up being a readmit with a baby who's dehydrated. Then all hell breaks loose even more. We get shouted at. She gets the fear of God through her. She ends up with a baby in the neonatal unit being stuffed with a nasogastric tube full of formula. She's then got a baby who's jaundiced. There's a massive amount of blame and guilt. And that mum ends up blaming herself. And it gets even worse. Yeah. And the reason I can trill that off my tongue is that scenario has happened to many, many of the patients I've then been called in to see as the lactation consultant to try and, in quotes, save the breastfeeding relationship. So that's where it gets really difficult for me, is when you've got these wonderful lactation advocates, passionate, whatever your bloody title is, I really don't care, because if you are skilled, you are bloody marvelous. Yeah. But you might be in a breastfeeding cafe situation or a breastfeeding drop-in, and there's literally 10 mums there, and you've got 2.5 hours.
And look, in that kind of scenario, and for sure I have been in a scenario similar to this, where I do have to give them kind of like a strict regimen for how we do it. I do it very differently to you. So I will say even slower than what you are doing. I will say that we need to do 30 mils per day less top up. And that will be like, let's say this mum is doing 50 mils of bottle after every feed, or 30 after every feed. Then for one of those feeds, we're going to give 30 mil less. And that's the only shift that we're going to make for 3 days. And in those 3 days, we are going to then check the weight again, make sure that the pee and the poo stays the same. If that's all good, then we can now potentially drop a pumping session. But I want to make sure that this baby is doing okay with 30 mil less every 24 hours before we start to pull out the pumping in the background.
Yeah.
One thing that I might do with the pumping is reduce the amount of time. So if they are pumping for 20 minutes, I might say, look, let's pull the pumping down to 15. Or I sometimes say as well, depending on the kind of pump they've got, that if they spend one pumping session where they watch and they can see that they have had 2 letdowns, then we can stop it after 2 letdowns. And for some people, that might be at 12 minutes, and for other people, that's 18 minutes. So that's one of the other things that we can potentially look at as well, to try to kind of gradually get them away while staying safe. And 100% of the time, if I've got a tiny little newborn that I feel maybe a little bit on the fence, then in their care plan, I will always have a little box that talks about, how do I know that my baby is getting enough to eat? Because, of course, that is the number one priority. We keep babies fed, and we're doing all of this in the background. Yeah.
And I think what this highlights is the examples we've given are purely examples. None of them are set in stone. I don't have that regime that I spoke about written down. You probably don't either, because actually what we are doing and what we need to do, and which is actually makes our job more interesting but harder, is that there is no way we have a rote take out 30 mils or take out 2 breastfeeds or take out 2 breastfeeds and a pump with every woman we see, because there is no all the same.
Right.
It is individual. And absolutely, you're going to have those babies who have got all sorts of risk factors. Their weight's been up and down. They're small. They're sleepy. Those babies you're going to be really cautious with. You've got a mum who's got a history of not being able to produce enough milk the time before. You're going to be more cautious. You're probably going to take out, like you say, a part of the top up. I'm not going to touch that pumping at all, because that stimulation is what I'm worried about. If we've got a baby who's on a nipple shield and has had real problems with sucking, my God, I'm not taking out the pumping yet. So I think what this highlights so brilliantly is that this is complex. However, if we are in the position where we are breastfeeding supporters in any shape or form, and we are handing out a triple feeding plan for whatever reason, we should have enough education to be able to highlight what, when, and how to stop and wean off this feeding plan, because that is going to be at a very different stage, a very different level, and take a very different amount of time for each individual that we see. So that for one woman, that will take a week. For another, it might be weaning off for a lot longer period. However, it's been in consultation with her that this is the plan. How are you going? Are you okay with it? Etc., etc. And this is detailed, written down, and follow-up is there. It is not a good luck with that.
Yeah. Back away slowly. Yeah. I love how you said that we have to work together with that woman to create that plan, because that is one thing that is often missed as well, is that at the beginning, they're told, this is what you need to do to get to this end goal. And potentially they get sent home and they're not able to actually do it. And then they feel like a failure. And then they talk about the fact that they have all this guilt and they chose to stop in some way. And actually, when we are first having that discussion with them, we need to talk with them about how feasible that actually is for them to start to do that plan. And if it's not possible for them, if there is a red flag in there, then we find another way right from the start. And I think that that is something that gets missed a lot as well.
Totally. Absolutely. It's so vitally important. And when we're talking about triple feeding, it can so easily be, we've got all these tick boxes in our heads as clinicians.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, okay, how do I maximize the most milk cells to be switched on? Oh, right, 8 times in 24 hours minimum. Okay, double pumping. Right, tick, tick, tick. Oh, extra milk for the baby. Right, we're on this much and this much and this much. Let's do the calculation. Right, done. How are we going to feed it? And then it's like, right, okay, in a bottle. Right, possibly tick, explain pace feeding. And then it's almost like we've written this out in our head because this is what we've been taught. And yet we need a little tick box that goes, the language we use, and we're actually going to do a podcast specifically on this with feeding plans, the language we use, the way we interact with that mum, with that parent, with that family, with whoever's there supporting her, involving whoever else is there, because it's a massive job.
Right. I want to know who's going to feed that mum. That's what I want to know. And I'm like, I'm not sending you home until you tell me who's going to feed you. And when are you going to have a shower?
Yep.
Like, tell me when I send you home with this plan, have a look at it. Tell me about your day.
Yeah.
Where can you imagine that you could have a shower?
Yeah.
Right? Just something like that as well. Like, you are an actual human being. It's not that you are a machine whose only job at the moment is to make milk for your baby.
And this is a classic way of making women feel like they are a milking machine.
Uh-huh. 100%.
This is a classic way of kind of triggering a response to hating pumping that they might actually need to use further on down the track if they need to go back to work. This is a classic way of something like this ending up as a pile of shite and feeling like a failure and ending up formula feeding and blaming themselves. And second baby comes around and they don't even want to try breastfeeding because of all of the trauma that is sitting behind this. So when we introduce triple feeding, it must never be done lightly. It can be a savior. It could also end up as a total shit fest. For all involved. But I think I need a t-shirt with that on.
It could debut. It could be a shit fest.
And none of us want a shit fest.
That's right. That's our new tagline, the Latch Revolution. The thing that I really want everybody to be told is about this 5-day thing. And yes, there are so many other things that we can do to try to really get it good. But people need to know that this is not a long-term solution and that at 5 days, if nothing is different, we change the plan. And that for me is the most important thing that a mum needs to hear when she gets told that this is something to do.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Point.
I think that we just very briefly just need to flag is that we have talked about the bottles and just that we will at some point talk about the fact that when people are triple feeding and needing to give a supplement, that there are many other options that for some situations can be much better as well. And we're going to talk about that later.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. Definitely. Feels like we've ended on a bummer. I think the take home messages with the nuance not there. We don't have take home messages and there's Katie going, take home message is nuance.
Is that
caution?
Yes,
5.
Caution.
Think of it like, I think the take home message is the 5-day turnaround. It's like, see it as an intervention like antibiotics. If you have not had a considerable change in a positive direction, we have to do something else. We have to look in a different direction. We have to use our detective skills in another way, and we have to come up with another solution.
Yep. Amazing. That's the take-home message. Yes, we did it.
Done.
Lovely to chat with you about tricky things, Katie James.
Likewise. Thank you.
Mwah, mwah.
Before you dash, a quick invite. Our new pro course, Decoding the Suck, is open. Think practical skills for tricky feeds, taught without the fluff. And if you're a midwife, doula, or anyone who just loves lactation, or maybe you're a mum-to-be or a new parent, Katie has more courses waiting for you. All the deets, find them in the show notes. And whilst you're there, please do all those podcasty things. Follow, 5-star it, and of course share it with a colleague. We'll catch you on the next drop.